Hi, my name is Polley, and I'm the Queensland Engineering Manager. I attended JNUC 2022 with some of my colleagues, and it was a fantastic event. It was really great to be back in person after a few years and see what everything is up to in the Apple admins community. We visited beautiful San Diego with amazing beaches, mountain area, city vibes. It's a really cool place in the world. Some of the best parts, I think, or the most interesting stuff about the conference was this continued story and breadth around security. The theme of love and trust was really interesting and played off of what we saw last year. If you have a look at the recap video we did about last JNUC and some of the trajectory that we saw. Security was definitely front and center of around how they want people to love the devices that they use, but also have the organizations that own and manage them trust them from a security posture perspective. So really cool of this love and trust analogy that they had going through. I thought it was amazing to see, and if you have a look at Damo's recap video of the keynote, about all the different things they talked about, and just echoing that we saw on the single stage, not only Apple, Jamf, but Microsoft and Amazon and Google, some of the biggest players in the IT space, all coming together on one stage, which is quite a testament to what Jamf is doing in the marketplace. So some of the really fun and interesting sessions that I attended personally that I thought were really cool. Firstly, Anatomy of the Mac. Really interesting talk from the security experts at Jamf. They went through a scenario of how they could use a fake app delivered via email to kind of smash and grab some files on the device. What it would do is it would use a tool called Mythic C2, which is a known kind of command and control tool that's out there, to steal files, and it did it in a way that it didn't actually leave a physical footprint. It actually executed in memory, which is quite interesting. So really recommend to check out that talk and understand how the threats in the landscape of macOS are evolving and how that's really something that we need to keep an idea of. And hey, we've got people like the guys behind Jamf Protect and the Jamf Security Cloud helping us to defend. So quite cool stuff there. One of the other really interesting sessions that we talked about, or that I went and saw, I should say, is a really interesting session by Kevin White. And what he was talking about was basically a 4,000-line script, this massive bash script that would go through and work through all the different scenarios and requirements of how to apply software updates on macOS. And so what this thing basically does is it uses both the Jamf software binary, but also has interactions with, if you use, for example, Jamf API. It will go through and ping that API and use the right things for example, Apple Silicon versus Intel machines. So really interesting talk, and I guess a really good example right now of how there's still some work to be done from Apple on how software updates work, but there's also been a lot of improvement. So this one tool is trying to, I guess, capture all the iterations as Apple evolved that piece of the operating system. One of the other sessions that was quite cool was one given by Jamf, talking around how they've evolved or gone to the next stage of Microsoft compliance integration with Intune and Azure AD. So if you're familiar with it at all, basically what they had a few years ago is they introduced an integration between Jamf and Intune to be able to take devices that are managed by Jamf, but have them, I guess, shared with Intune as a single pane of glass to be able to see their compliance status inside of the wider compliance rules inside of the organization in Azure. And what we've seen is, I guess, an evolution of that integration from Microsoft and ways that they, I guess, want to change, and also some feedback from community and how it needed to evolve to actually meet the demands of Mac admins and security professionals out there. And what they found is they've a little bit more recently had an integration with Apple with iOS devices and how that works. And so what they've done is they've built upon that integration. So the key difference here is that moving forward, we're not going to have a case of Intune and Jamf trying to co-manage a macOS device. Rather, it's going to be that Jamf decides on the compliance criteria, says it's compliant or not, and then actually pushes that over to Azure AD. So rather than it being actually Intune per se, it's actually just the overarching Azure conditional access engine. So pretty cool stuff there. Definitely recommend to check out that talk. One of the other interesting talks that we had was around Jamf Cloud. So Jamf Cloud used to be, for those who've been around for a while, just Jamf Pro. Jamf Pro was in Jamf Cloud and that was it. Obviously a few years have passed now that we've got all these different products and solutions that Jamf have either acquired or built that now make up the Jamf Cloud portfolio. And so we have Pro, School, Protect, and the Security Cloud, kind of the X1 acquisition and the products that came across from that. And so what we have really is this mix of different products that all need to be managed in the cloud. And it was really interesting to see how the more recently developed products were a mixture of actually serverless and cloud native, containerized style of architectures. And of course, Jamf Pro, faithful original product of Jamf portfolio, has had to evolve and change. And you can really see how they're making some great wins in performance that really only happen in a cloud native environment. So yeah, very interesting to see that. And for those of you who are on-prem, definitely check that out because it's interesting to see how the product is able to evolve when empowered by the cloud. I guess last but not least, I definitely want to call out Damo's presentation that he did around shortcuts in the Jamf API. Really, really interesting stuff to show a powerful and yet minimal way to interact with your MDM and devices. He has different examples and we actually have a page up, so definitely encourage you to check that out, get access to the links and all the resources and materials, because it is a really cool way to interact across macOS, iOS, and iPadOS using the Shortcuts app with Jamf Pro. Pretty cool stuff. And not just Jamf Pro, actually, Jamf, the other Jamf products as well. And lastly, a kind of a bonus round of a really interesting topic that we saw there was how a Ukrainian company called MacPaw ensured the company's security and stability during the war with Russia. Really, obviously interesting, once in a lifetime type of thing. And so they talked through how they had to prepare, basically a risk plan of, if they were invaded, what would happen? And so they walked through things like satellite internet and what they had available to them, which was pretty bad. We're talking kilobits of speed. They had to prioritize what types of services they would have if they were displaced from their office. Also had a really interesting real-world example of a stolen device that they sent to a new starter that never made it due to the advance of the Russian army. And so this device actually came online sometime later behind enemy lines. Really interesting stuff, all thanks to automated device enrollment and integration with Jamf. So cool stuff there, and how they work through that and had a visibility on that. And lastly, this, again, just incredible, being able to tweet Elon Musk, I think it was the minister, Ukrainian minister of digital or technology, and him basically saying, hey, we have bad internet, give us internet. And literally within a few weeks, Elon turned around and provided Starlink, and MacPaw showed an example of when the kit actually showed up to the place and they were able to start using it. Pretty cool stuff. All right, so thank you for listening to this recap video. If you have any questions or want to chat to us about some of your impressions or findings from watching through the videos from JNUC, hit us up at info@compnow.com.au. We look forward to supporting you soon.